Hi guys, we are back again, and today we are talking about monohybrid cross by Mendel. Well, here is Gregor Mendel, and he was not in true words a scientist. He had an extensive lab or something. He was just a monk. And basically in the monastery what he was doing, he was studying for the very first time inheritance. And the organism that he chose to study inheritance were the pea plants. So let's see what he did. So basically he took two true breeding parents. Let's understand that first. So a true breeding parent, this is a pea plant with white flower, means that for generations and generations and generations they have self-pollinated, and all the progenies all will have white flowers, so they're true to white flowers. The purple flowers, the pea plant, has been self-pollinating for generations and will produce only purple flowers. That means there has been it's pure, it is true, there has been no contamination. So basically he took purple and white flowers, and now for the first time in a controlled environment he transferred the pollen from one into the female part of the other, and therefore he cross-pollinated two pea plants, one with purple flowers, one with white flowers, collected the seeds, and when he planted them next generation, to his surprise, he saw all plants had purple flowers. This he called as the F1 generation. So what he did was, these purple flowers from the F1 generation, the first filial generation, he now cross-pollinated them. So he pollinated, he took another purple flower, and then he transferred the pollen, collected the seeds, and once he collected the seeds, he grew them next year to have the next F2 generation, that is called the F2 generation is the filial generation 2, and these were he saw the purple flowers 3:1 ratio. There were, for every 3 purple flowers there was 1 white flower. So this basically, now you understand the meaning of the word monohybrid cross. Mono means we are studying one trait. Trait means one characteristic. So what characteristic did we study? Well, the flower color. So that's why it's called a monohybrid cross. Well, basically, so here, first and foremost, something that he understood was this, the law of factors. He said something is being passed from the parent to the next generation that determines the trait, the characteristic, which, by the way, he called this the phenotype. So phenotype means the characteristic, the external appearance, okay? So something that you can see, something that you can measure. So here this is the purple flower, and the white flower is the phenotype. So he said, so this first law was the law of factors. That's number 1. He said something is being passed from the parent to the next generation that controls the trait, the phenotype, and this something that is passed, he called it factors. Of course, today we know it as genes, right? So now, the second law was the law of segregation. He said, of course, mathematically, see, this is what he did. He says, okay, so purple flowers, white flowers. So let's keep purple flowers as uppercase P and white flowers as lowercase p. All right? So what he said was that these factors that determine the trait must be found in pairs. And this pair separates or segregates during gamete formation. So because that's the only way that would account mathematically for the next generation. So he said, once again, what's law of segregation? He said factors are paired. And these factors, they separate during gamete formation. So the gamete in this case would be uppercase P, and the gamete in this case, which is the white flower, would be lowercase p. I'll draw the lowercase p like this so you can see it better. So now in the F1 generation, this gamete or the sex cell and this gamete will unite to form this, right? So this, you're back to two factors. So this is the law of segregation. Then he said, okay, let's see the third law, which is the law of dominant and recessive. So he said that for every trait there has to be contrasting pair of characteristics, like tall and dwarf are two contrasting pair of characteristics, right? Purple flower, white flower, contrasting pair of characteristics. So this he called them allele. Okay, so alternative forms of a gene would be the definition of an allele. And here, as you can see, he said, well, as long as the dominant trait is there, as long as the dominant factor, that means as long as uppercase P is there, the lowercase p will never express itself. So what is dominant? Dominant is the factor that is being expressed. Okay, so the factor that is expressed when? In where? In the F1 generation. So the factor that's expressed in the monohybrid cross F1 generation is the dominant trait, and the one that is not expressed but only expressed in the F2 generation of a monohybrid cross, as you can see the white one, therefore this has to be recessive. Obviously the factor was there, remained there in the F1 generation, because the factor or the gene as we now know it was passed from the parent to the offspring. But was the factor for the white flowers expressed? No. Only the factor that was the uppercase P was expressed in the F1 generation of the monohybrid cross. And this is the dominant factor. The one that is finally expressed in the F2 generation as the white flower, in this case, is the one which is recessive. As long as the dominant is there, the recessive will never be able to express itself. So this is kind of messy. Let's see. All right, so here, if I may, I will quickly draw and explain the mathematics he said. So he said, okay, he said the parental, this is the parents. The parents, what was the phenotype? The parents' phenotype was purple and white, right? So purple flower and white flower, that was the phenotype. Well, what is the genotype then? As per his law of factors, so purple will be uppercase P, and the white flowers will be lowercase p, okay? And what are the gametes then? So the sex cells that are formed, remember the law of segregation. So only one factor will go, so uppercase P will form one gamete, lowercase p will form one gamete, okay? This is the parents. Now let's see the F1 generation. In the F1 generation, what is the phenotype? Well, the phenotype was all purple. What was the genotype? The genotype was uppercase P, lowercase p. Remember this gamete, and this gamete fuse, fertilize, and you will have this genotype. Now this will also produce gametes, right? The sex cells. And in this case, you will have two types of gametes, one uppercase P and one lowercase p. So what about the F2 generation? Well, F2 generation, what was the phenotype? So the phenotype, if I may, I'm going to draw here the Punnett square. Punnett square, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to put the gametes from 1 here, uppercase P and lowercase p, uppercase P, lowercase p. Now I'm going to combine, so uppercase P, uppercase P, uppercase P, lowercase p, uppercase P, lowercase p, lowercase p, lowercase p. All right. So P, uppercase P, this would be called a homozygous dominant, and of course will be purple flowers. Uppercase P, lowercase p would be called a heterozygous. Why? Because here is a combination of the two alleles, heterozygous. So this will be heterozygous, and here of course the flowers will also be purple. Remember our law of dominance and recessive. Same case here. This is heterozygous. Okay. Lowercase p would be homozygous recessive, because it's lowercase, and here the flowers would be white. So for your F2 generation, I've drawn a Punnett square, and as you can see, there'll be purple flower, purple flower, purple flower, 3 purple flowers, and 1 white flower in the ratio of 3:1. So here is just a repetition of what I was trying to explain. There is the dominant allele, there's a recessive allele, homozygous dominant, homozygous recessive, and of course heterozygous. Mendel didn't just stop with just purple and white flowers. There were many things that he studied for his monohybrid cross. Like he said, flower position, axial or terminal. So of course, all the F1 generation had axial flowers. Therefore, axial trait is the dominant trait. So he crossed pea plants with yellow seeds and green seeds. F1 generation all had yellow seeds. Of course, that means yellow is the dominant. He also crossed pea plants with round seed shape and wrinkled seed shape. And what he found? F1 generation all round, therefore round is dominant. Pod shape, peas with inflated pods and constricted pods. So the F1 generation all were inflated with inflated pods. Pod color, green, yellow. Well, F1 generation all had green, therefore green is the dominant trait. Tall, dwarf plants when crossed, all F1 generation were tall, therefore tall is the dominant. All right. So just quickly, if I can write this is the phenotype, right? What's the genotype? This will be capital T, capital T. For dwarf, lowercase t, lowercase t. And what do you think would be the genotype of this F1 generation? Well, take 1 T from here, because this will produce a gamete with only 1 T, right? Uppercase T. This will produce a gamete with a lowercase t. So uppercase T, lowercase t, the genotype would be uppercase T and lowercase t. Okay? So hopefully this was helpful for you guys. If there are any questions or concerns, please stop by my office or talk to me, call me. And I thank you for your time and attention.